Right, everybody, we are back on the MN Viking Zombie YouTube and Twitch channel. Had a little problem there, technical difficulties. It happens. Adam and I were in the middle of talking about Time Cut, but we're back. And I don't know how you want to do it, Adam. We can start from the beginning, or we can try to keep two up and part one and two, but I'll let you decide.
Well, you don't need to keep talking about what you've already talked about, so we might as well keep going from where we were at and discuss a little bit more about how this movie made you feel.
Well, some nostalgia here. We're reviewing Time Cut from 2024. Great young crew and cast. I mentioned before, it feels like a Disney attempt at a horror movie for me. Definitely not up on my favorites because you and I have reviewed a few dozen of these now. And, for every three or four that we love and it knocks out of the park and beats expectation, this is one I probably won't be going. If there's a sequel,
But on the other hand, I do think that this is a great movie. Like, if you were to introduce someone who doesn't like horror, doesn't like gore, and try to give them a little touch of a horror and element, like a touch of slasher, it's great.
yeah, that's a good point. There's not going to be a lot of blood. There's not going to be a lot of intensity with this movie, and that's
Not a
all I
lot of
do.
swearing. It's very clean for a horror movie, which is kind of
Yeah.
nice.
And rather than run down, scene by scene, because I watched this yesterday, but I don't remember every specific scene in sequence. I can tell you, like I was saying earlier, I really enjoy some of the cast. I see, the projection that goes with Hollywood and these things. There is potential here from some of these young actors and actresses. The leading man in the role here, Griffin Gluck, plays Quinn. I've seen him in something else prior. I can definitely see him forward going with this. The two girls that are sisters in the movie that are the co-main stars here, Summer and Lucy, are the characters. I'm really excited for them. It could definitely.
Yeah, I thought they had pretty decent chemistry, despite their characters not really supposed to be able to know each other. Because I don't think she was ever alive when her sister was alive, so there was no like crossover in their lives.
Well, I enjoy too and this is a really basic thing to say, but they're believable because they actually look similar. They have similar features as well, which I really, that's a key that they sometimes miss in these big movies.
And they spoke kind of similarly, and they carried themselves similarly. They did a good job there.
I think that's the biggest part, Adam. You nailed it. They carried themselves very similarly with the element of what you spoke about. In the movie, they don't know each other because one was unfortunately slain before the other was brought along. But in this timeline, there are multiple timelines in this movie, which is an underrated element. They get to meet each other. They don't know at first by purpose and by design. They don't know that they're sisters in the beginning, but they slowly get there.
Yeah, we're not going to do this review as in-depth as the others, but there are some things I wanted to talk about in this movie. Like, I think the best part of this movie was when the sisters were trying to figure out, like, okay, if I save you, am I going to be erased? Will I not exist anymore?
We're getting in right to the good meat and potatoes of this, and it shows a little humility on both sides. Obviously, Summer, the girl who's slain, and what the movie's based around, she doesn't want to lose her sister, and they don't want to affect the future, and obviously they want to keep everybody together, and nobody wants to die. There is a bit where you'd have to ask yourself, do I be selfish and let my sister die and continue my life knowing I had a chance to save her? Or do I do the right thing and save a life and possibly alter my existence? Which, very deep subject matter for this particular one, but it's a good thing to think about. It makes you think if you want to go that route while you're watching the movie, which I really enjoy.
Without that dynamic right there, I think this movie would have fallen a little bit more flat.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. I'm glad you verbalized it that way because while I did think about that with the movie, that is a very important element. And that's good to your point earlier about this wasn't my cup of tea, but you and I have watched plenty of horror movies and, we can kind of watch whatever. And for somebody who actively avoids them, this is a good way to dip their toe in the water. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I don't think you really want to compare Time Cut to The Sadness or anything like that.
Yeah, this isn't on Human Centipede and the Conjuring levels of horror and craziness. So you're good. This is a good gateway film.
But there is a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of like high school relationship drama kind of stuff that you can't really get away from. And it's actually kind of the main plot of the movie too. Is Okay, so the main slasher boy, who, we do find out is the killer from the future, waited until the future to come back in time and kill the girl he had a crush on because she was gay? Is that what happened?
Yeah, because she turned him down, and
But why did he wait until 20 years in the future to come back and do it?
yeah, well, he must have caught wind. And forgive me if I forgot this moment in the movie. I didn't really have my phone out, and I wasn't really distracted. I had to watch it in pieces because I was cooking. But I don't remember the point where he learned about Lucy going back to try to save her, to come back in time to kill her. Like, I don't remember that part. So that was the big question that I had, is like, okay, when did Quinn, the killer, when did he learn about this? Because he kind of just shows up. And the big reveal is kind of like, okay, it's Quinn. I was wrong. I thought it was the dad that works at the corporation. I thought that's who it was. He seemed kind of weird and fishy. But yeah, when he takes his mask off, you're like, okay, it's him. But how did he know? And why is he here already? That's kind of weird.
And if he wanted to kill her for not loving him, why did he wait so long?
Right. Yeah, that one threw me for a loop. I wasn't sure.
Or was the original killer like the young version of him? But then that wouldn't have made a lot of sense for the first killing.
Right. I believe, just because I looked at his face and saw a little aging there, not the best visual effects, but you could see there was an attempt at making him look a little older, that in the timeline they were in with younger Quinn, he hadn't turned yet because he hadn't yet been rejected. So he knows what happens. Now he's going back in time to make sure the job stays the way it is. I'm not sure. That one kind of threw me for a loop, And I'm not going to critique that part of it so much. This is stylistically is the reason why it wasn't one of my favorites. But
so the other sister wasn't created because the parents only wanted one kid.
Right.
So when we'll say older sister for the one that got killed, when she survived, it's not like other movies where like the other sister would fade away.
Yeah.
Because she instead of going to the future where she didn't exist, she went to the past where she didn't exist to exist when she didn't exist. So she had to get a social security number, get a house and a bed. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, of course, that's the biggest thing for me. Like, when you're dealing with movies like John Wick and they say, hey, let's change the VIN number on a car, I think that's probably pretty normal, actually. But to make a person appear out of thin air, that's a little harder, and that's a little harder to manage once you're around people, because once you've been seen, to me, you're connected now. People are going to remember your face. They might be a fake name that you give, but they're going to remember you. They can identify you, is what I'm trying to say. So I always have questions about that. How are you going to do this? Where are you going to get a job? But that's not important for the story. I get it. They did a great job, referencing the culture of when we grew up in this era when you and I were younger. The mall was great. God, I remember going
I thought
to the
they
mall.
did a pretty decent job of trying to insert different scenery as far as locations, to try to mix things up a little bit so it's not so stale. It's like, okay, here's a weird boat museum, here's the mall, here's the school, here's the workshop. And it's like, okay, so we are moving a little bit from place to place with these characters, making it feel a little different, which is nice.
Yeah, and I kind of like this because you can see this in most every major film, but they kind of did the reference too. You have the one jock that you think is a jerk, who was the ex-love interest. You have the romantic nerd who wants the pretty girl, but he's never going to get her. You have the family aspect and the sister dynamic. And on the flip side of that, you've got the parents who love one child and don't really love the other, even though they're in two different timelines. So they check a lot of the boxes that you would want. They're fun. I'll say they're fun, and they're pretty exciting. Got to say, though, you were talking earlier, not a lot of gore, not a lot of whatever. Dude, there's one of the gnarliest kills I've seen in a long time in this movie, and I was like, okay, I'm not feeling this Disney atmosphere so far, but this kill, it was like a defibrillator for my interest in this movie. I was like, oh my God, what a great one. So, spoiler alert, we are not the Dead Meat podcast or anything like that. I'm not going to give a golden chainsaw away, but the coolest kill in this movie is taking a girl's face and smashing it into an escalator that's going
Oh
down.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Creative kill in this movie. Got to give him kudos to that.
Yeah, otherwise it was a lot of like, just stabbing and bloodstained clothes and showing a body after the death and, prop knives and things like that. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Especially for a movie like this where you don't want to rely on gore and blood and all that kind of stuff. This movie wasn't that movie, and I'm glad it didn't try to be.
That's a very good way to put it. Don't be something that you're not. Like you said, man, I hate to steal your thunder on it, but this is a good gateway film. It's cool. It gives you enough of the anticipation and the chase scenes where it would be kind of thrilling at a very low level. Something like you and I, we're kind of desensitized to that, but for the average person that doesn't like this genre, yeah, it's got enough to keep you anticipating. I did like some of the scenes with the group setting. The kids, they do the typical high school thing. They have typical high school dialogues, but I think they portray it well.
All right, I'm going to jump to the end here for a second because I got to talk to you about this. I hated, and I will underline hated, the, Breakfast Club letter writing montage thing at the end. That was stupid.
Yeah, no, not a big fan of that.
But then they kind of canceled that out by having the whole, sisters sitting together arguing over who was the older sister. I loved that.
I thought it was cheesy, but it's got to go.
It's the same kind of cheesy. It was just a different way they did it, and I liked the other one a lot more.
But at the same time, for not liking the cheesiness of it, I did enjoy that it gave you a warm and fuzzy at the end, because this is a warm and fuzzy ending kind of movie. This is the one that Hollywood says, okay, we'll figure it out to make everybody happy in the end. And I'd probably do the same thing. I'd probably do some fun, cute things, as the word should be used.
And they could have made this super depressing by having the one sister sacrifice herself.
They could have done
and
it.
fade away into obscurity and give up her life so her sister can live. And I mean, they could have done some really, really wild stuff with this, but they did play it safe, and I think that safe playing kind of led to it being that, as you said, kind of Disney-style feel-good movie that I think will appeal to a broader audience.
Yeah, for sure. Good formula there. Like you said, they could have done a Stranger Things, Walking Dead sort of thing where it's like, damn, that happened, that sucks. But I like that they teamed together. I also highlighted why you weren't talking before in the first part is I see you on Miss McPherson. What was her first name? Hannah McPherson was the director. I see you. There was a cool part in the movie where a girl stands up to bullying, to bully in this movie. And 20, 25 years ago, that would have never happened in a movie.
No.
Now it's becoming more acceptable. There's a lot more social norm to be inclusive and, to try to make everybody be seen and heard. So I see you on that. I like that point. I thought it was cool. It certainly shifted. That was the moment in the film where the two timelines took a big shift. And that's basically where Quinn would have been thrown in a river, which is nuts. And the love interest, Summer, she was not going to say anything or do anything, but he was actually saved. He becomes in a good friendship and bond in the good timeline of Quinn with Lucy, the main character. And I thought that was a pretty pivotal point. I liked that, I could see if I was younger how when we watch things like this when we were their age, when you watch kids do things that clearly they're only going to do in a movie, you feel empowered in such a way to be like, oh, these kids are smart. Look what they're able to do. And they're only in high school. So I imagine if I was 20 years younger, I would probably think, all right, that's kind of cool. I'd like to be that person.
But see, you get stuff like that, and then you get, the characters walking around alone without weapons and things like that. And it's like, there's a killer there. That's why you're here.
Right. Well, especially in this movie.
Okay, you could be preparing and, scheduling things and trying to work out how to get back, but instead you're having a fashion show?
That's the funniest part for this movie, because they do have the knowledge, even though she's slowly trying to let them know without giving her position and giving her cards away, I guess you would say in a phrase. It's funny because they actually do know what's going to happen. You're right, Adam. They don't prepare as well as they probably should have. And it always brings me back to this point. I'm going to be that guy. I'm sorry. I'm a military man. I like guns. just get a gun and figure it out, man. Why do we have to do this thing?
You sound like
where-
Scotty.
Oh
Just
my
get a
gosh.
gun.
Just get a gun and figure it out. It's cool. I
We can
did
shoot them together.
I did appreciate the reveal, even though it is a little cheesy and corny for my liking, where a character plays two parts of themselves. I'm always impressed by this, no matter if it's on a 1 to 10 scale, if it's a 3 or if it's a 9.9. Anybody that has to play two versions of themselves, I'm always impressed by this because it's just another depth and another layer that you have to add to your plate. And Griffin, who plays Quinn, who ends up being the bad guy in this movie, but also the good guy in a different timeline, he has a little, he needs to work on it a little more, and he's still very young. But I saw a difference between the quirky, big-eared, skinny nerd to this guy has some demons that you can see when he reveals his face, and he's got the
At
look.
that point, I agree with you. He was still playing the nerd a lot better than he was playing the, rugged kind of
Right.
spurned lover kind of guy that was angry at everybody. I wasn't quite there with that character yet.
Right.
I didn't quite believe either that this girl that he loved, he would want to hunt down and kill at that point. I wasn't there yet.
Right.
I could get being angry, but murder?
Yeah, that's probably the most egregious thing of the entire film is, if she goes out, like on prom night, you guys were supposed to go to prom together, and she sleeps with your best friend or maybe your brother. I could see that being enough to maybe push somebody over the edge, but just because she didn't answer a letter that you wrote, kid, that's some school shooter vibes right there, man. You gotta figure that one out internally, and there wasn't really an explanation outside of he got rejected. So
Yeah, I wanted a little bit more meat there. I love movies that give you a reason for things to be happening. And I'm going to make some people mad if they're listening to this right now. But that's why I can't get into the Terrifier movies.
right,
There is no plot. There's no story.
it's shock
There's no
value.
reason things are happening.
Right.
Give me a reason to care about these characters and the things that are happening. And I will enjoy the movie a lot more.
I can agree with that. I can totally agree with it. I go into that thinking like it's McDonald's at 2 a.m. I know it's not good for me, and I know it's kind of bad and dog shit, but I get what I want out of that movie when I don't want to think. But you and I aren't like that. We're not doing movie reviews because we don't want to think. So I totally
we've definitely
understand
done
it.
some thinkers on here too.
Oh yeah, we have. Which is a good plug, by the way. If you're gonna watch this, go back and check out more of the reviews we've done, because we've done a pretty wide variety of stuff that's been commercially successful, appeals to a broader audience. We've done very niche films.
Yeah, direct to streaming, major movies from theaters. But we tried to keep it a little more recent with movies. So when this came out, I remember coming out and people comparing it to Totally Killer. And that's totally appropriate. And like I said, I probably enjoyed Totally Killer a little bit more.
Okay.
But this one, I wasn't really disappointed. I'm glad I watched it. But I don't think I'm going to watch it again.
I don't either, man. It covers a lot of ground. We cover, women sticking up for themselves. There is the LGBTQ movement in this movie on a very small scale, which is crazy to think about. 20-some years ago, if a person came out as gay, they were like scared to tell their parents, and they'd be disappointed because it's like it feels like half the world is gay now. It's 2025, and it's like, yep, it's out there. But crazy to see the difference in 20 years. But they cover that. If you're, like I said, if you're in a younger age bracket, I feel like this movie will probably appeal a little bit more to you. Adam, you're over 40, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm 37, so this probably isn't our. We probably weren't the target audience. I'll say that, but I'm with you, man. I don't despise and hate this film. We've watched way worse.
Oh, yeah.
I went into this blind. I watched the trailer, and that was it. So, yeah, I'm not going to watch this one again. It didn't really do anything for me. But what I took out positive of this movie is I expect to see Madison Bailey, Griffin Gluck, and Antonia Gentry. I expect to see them in more things. I see some.
It is so nice to watch a movie and like see people that you think are going to go on and do some pretty good things.
Absolutely. I feel like a scout for this one, man. Like, I don't like this team. I'm not really familiar with the region, but that left tackle there, he's going to be something cool one day. Like,
And I know Netflix originals aren't a beautiful place to get a start, but everybody gets a start somewhere.
You know what? I'm gonna reference a movie about a movie, but I always think of Entourage when you say stuff like that. How my guy Vinny, the main character in Entourage, that Jeremy Piven said, I spotted him in a Mentos commercial. It doesn't matter where you start. People can get pulled from everywhere, and especially the trajectory today for like social media. You could do 3 movies, and they could all be relatively small, and you could be thrown into a major motion.
For example, did you know that Jack Black's first acting was in a commercial for the Nintendo game Pitfall?
And now he's doing a Minecraft movie. That's so fun. That's so awesome. I'm going next weekend to see that with my son. So I didn't know that. That's cool. That's a fun fact.
Oh yeah. I'm full of weird facts that I shouldn't know, but now I do.
I hope you do
I
that
don't
from
know
now
where to pick them
on these movie reviews. I hope you can dig some out because that's really cool. Seeing where people start at. Yeah.
Yeah, as far as this movie goes, when I was putting together a list, I came across that one. I was like, oh, I forgot I wanted to watch that. And a lot of movies I don't forget that. Like when I wanted to watch The Coffee Table, I searched for that for months. And I watched it and I can't, in a good heart, recommend that to people, but I'm glad I watched it. Again, I'll never
really
watch it again.
I've heard intense things about that one.
Oh, it is very intense.
Yeah,
it's
trying
not
to get
the
Adam.
same audience as Time Cut, that's for sure.
Adam, I asked Adam to tell me about it, and he's like, absolutely no spoilers, so he won't even cut me any slack on that. Maybe I'll give that a whirl this weekend. We always end this, just as a recap, we give a rating here, and we'll go by the 10th, not by the 100th. We're not doing 0.74.
Right.
But mine's going to be low, but I will say, like you said, take this for what it is. Like, if you go into a pizza shop and you're expecting Mexican food, you're probably wrong for that. So don't go into this if you're like me and you like supernatural thrillers or slashers. This is on a base level for a younger, more clean audience. I'm okay with shock value. I'm okay with crazy stuff.
And it's a little more sci-fi than horror, I'll definitely say that.
That's a good point too. Yes, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I get it. I'm gonna give this one a 5.8. I think it's good for a watch. I'm not gonna watch it again. I did take away some of the younger characters that I expect to see more of, only because it's a little stale for my liking. But this is preference here. This is totally my bias and preference coming in because there's way worse movies that I've suffered through. So this isn't the worst by far.
You and I scale is a little different because for you, I think you have 5 as average, right?
Yeah.
For me, I'd go like on a high school grading scale. So for me, when I was thinking about this, I went with a 6.2 out of 10. It's one of my lower scores for a movie, but I enjoyed it enough to where I wasn't super bored while watching or anything like that. So
Right.
I'm not going to give it a super low grade. But I felt like it lacked a lot of depth that it could have elaborated on a little bit more and thrown out some of the more fan service kind of things that make it, I think, maybe more appealing to a general audience. So I get why it's there. It's just not made for me, and that's fine.
Well, if you average our stuff together, that's a 6 out of 10. It's not bad. Once you start getting into the 7.5s and above, that's when we really like a movie. I think it could have went to that with a lot of changes. When you say minor changes, that was a fringe, good one. This one needed a handful of like pretty big changes, but overall, it's not bad. It does what it's intended to do, and the materials and cast and plot which it was given. And I'm not mad that I watched this one. This one's not the worst one we've reviewed, and I look forward to seeing these young actors and actresses in the future in something.
One thing I would like to see is if like someone on YouTube made a map of like how all this time jumping and people creating and losing each other, and okay, if I save her, I die there. I'd like to see a big wall map of all that to see if any of this actually made sense in the long run, because I'm not sure it did.
Well, it's that too, and you have the Tony Stark element that I forgot to bring up of how they're 17 or 16-year-old kids talking about quantum physics and time travel, and it's like, really?
So how about that one, the killer kid, when he realizes that he's the killer, and he knows that other girl, the girl that came back from the past, is going to go kill him. Why is he like, you're going to kill me in the future?
Yeah, and there's that part, but there's also got to be the conversation of, yeah, dude, you murdered my sister. I'd like to
But
see
see,
those
in the
side
kid's mind,
conversations.
he didn't. That's the thing.
Of course. And I think that speaks to, this is a super deep thought about this movie, but I think that speaks to how much he actually loved that girl. Because he didn't even think about that at all.
Not once.
Yeah, that's actually a really sweet sentiment.
And honestly, it's
I like
probably
that.
good they didn't bring that up because it would have made people watching at home be like, "Oh yeah, what?"
Yeah.
Baffling stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple of spots. This is the handful of things that I would change, but you know what? I'm not mad about it, man. And if anybody ever does from this film happens to stumble upon this, hey, listen, I don't hate it. I know it might seem a little low and unfair, but overall, not bad. Not
No,
bad.
as I said, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was entertaining. I do think it was more of like a popcorn movie. If I sat down with some popcorn and just enjoyed the movie for what it was, I'd enjoy it more than sitting down and trying to break it down and go in depth and really enjoy it that way. This is definitely more of a popcorn movie if you're that kind of fan.
I like that. We can end it on that. This one is a popcorn movie, ladies and gentlemen. Brand it. Put
And
it on
not
a
all
shirt.
movies got to be in depth, deep, super intellectual movies. Every once in a while, it's good to put on a movie that you can just relax and enjoy.
I agree.
And this hit that mark for me. I watched it. I enjoyed it. I'm done with it.
I think that's pretty direct, man. That's how I feel about it. I'm not mad that I watched it, and yeah, this is not the end of it, so we're gonna do more. And I'm excited to look at that list you gave me, and we'll do another one soon.
Oh, there's some more really good ones coming out here pretty soon. I think that the one just came out on Max. I don't remember what the title was, but I'll make sure to send that over to you. And of course, we're always open to suggestions for modern horror movies, so shoot them over to us on social media if you got it. I am at MNVikingZombie, as you probably know if you are on my Twitch or YouTube at the moment. But you can hit me up on social medias. I use that handle everywhere, so just get a hold of me.
Love it. Thanks for letting me jump in again, man. If you guys want to follow me, I'm on Instagram at NCDogDude. We also do a football podcast together called the Purple People Podcast for the Minnesota Viking fans out there. We'll be back. I'm excited to join Adam again. We'll pick another movie in the horror or thriller or maybe sci-fi genre. So that neighborhood. We're not going to go too crazy.
Something horror adjacent at least.
And we'll be back soon. Adam?
Oh yeah. In the meantime, stay classy, friends, and